Hello, and you're very welcome to the JMac podcast. I'm John Mann. Of course, the podcast is brought to you by orgretch.com. Use the promo code JMac podcast to get 15% off on their website. And today I'm joined by Stephen Ivers. Of course, Stephen is a well regarded S and C coach around Cavan here, and of course, he's going to make his name in Ireland very soon. Without Stephen, how are you? You can hear and see me okay?
I can, John. Good to see you.
Super stuff. You've seen enough of me, says you. How's things, sir?
All well, thanks. Yourself?
Good. I think this is the 10th or 12th time we're trying this, but we got there in the end. There's someone looking down on us. How's life, man?
All well. Enjoying the break, obviously. It's been a few weeks now since things finished up, and obviously takes a week or two to get over the initial disappointment, and then you start enjoying just having that bit more free time that you ordinarily wouldn't have. But can find already getting a wee bit of an itch to get back to doing bits.
I'd say so. There's only so much. There's only so much Peppa Pig you could be watching, and Fireman Sam and blah blah blah.
Yeah, that's before the kids get up. But it's just we're just creatures of habit, you know. And when you're in on a Tuesday or you're in on a Friday, you can't help but feel you should be somewhere else doing something else.
Yeah.
But that's just something you just have to get used to, I suppose.
Yeah. The Tuesday nights are long, and old Champions League's on there at the minute. I don't know if you're a soccer fan.
Yeah, I'm a Spurs man. Yeah.
Spurs, very good. Yeah, I'm a United fan from my trouble, so yeah, we're probably.
Well, you only have to worry about Thursday nights then.
Clatty. Jeez, we're only 2 minutes in. So how is things? Of course, you finished off a season with Cavan Gaels there in the 2022 season. Obviously, you're telling me off air that you've finished up with Cavan Gaels. Obviously, after I suppose it probably is a long year in the Cavan club scene anyway. But I suppose Stephen, you're finished up and on to pastures new.
Yeah, 12 months went in, or sorry, 10 months, about 10 and a half months went in quite quick. And I hadn't planned, this time last year, I was making other plans to do different other bits and pieces that I've been meaning to try. And then when Cavan Gaels came looking for me, it was too good of a chance an opportunity to turn down. But I kind of made it quite clear, even in the initial stages, that it'd be very much a short-term kind of thing, and very much about going all in and trying to win a championship within the year. And I would have felt going in that was quite achievable given the level of experience and ability of players that were there. But as the case was, it wasn't to be this year, and so good, bad, or indifferent, I was kind of always going to be stepping away from the role and kind of looking at exploring different opportunities that I would have been this time last year, and kind of getting back to that kind of way of thinking, I feel like.
Yeah, super stuff. Yeah, and obviously Garnet did come out on top in the 2022 Cavan Championship, Stephen, in the Senior Championship, obviously 2 weeks ago. And obviously, as you were saying off air, it's not bad to, I suppose, get knocked out by the winners, but then obviously Cavan Gaels, the club, the tradition, the players, everything, obviously they were making a big push for it this year, I suppose. But what did you maybe make? Obviously, you were the strength and conditioning coach, so you would have seen probably hands-on Cavan Gaels 2022 campaign.
Yeah, I suppose we initially quantify these things. You obviously look at what did they win and what did they not win, as the case may be. I suppose that's what supporters and players would be looking at. From my own perspective and my own role and stuff like that, I was very, very pleased about how things went, and the kind of buy-in and the work that I would have got out of the lads over the course of 10 months, and the commitment and their application was unquestionable throughout the course of the year. And you know, you don't always get that, and you can find that out very early in the season with a team, and you can be thinking, okay, I got 6-7 more months at a minimum of this, and you just kind of have to see out the job, maybe, you know. And that can make it feel like a very, very long year when players aren't kind of pushing in the same direction as you and the management team. But that wasn't the case with us. There was really, really good appetite there for players to grow and learn and achieve success. And I picked up on that quite soon, early in the road, which is always good. I said, kind of on a personal point of view, I kind of went into this very much with a different coaching philosophy, and I'd kind of upskilled in a lot of different areas before and into it. So I was keen to try those out, and I got the opportunity and the time afforded to me from the management to do that, which I was very grateful to have, and I was very happy about it. Things really went, and what kind of training modalities I used, and kind of obviously through experience, my own coaching philosophy has evolved, and I was really happy with the work that I done. So from that point of view, I think the players really enjoyed it. I think if you were to speak to some of them, I'd like to think that they enjoyed the experience, and it wasn't something that they had kind of experienced before, and it brought them on and raised their self-awareness, and it kind of upskilled them, and it's given them the tools to take ownership of different types of or different areas of training that they now can do themselves, that they wouldn't have already had the skills or the knowledge to do prior to this.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. I suppose kind of coming up the championship, and obviously it's a really, really good, nice time of year, and obviously the evenings getting longer, the sun kind of starts shining, and obviously we've seen a lot of good kind of championship games in Cavan this year as well, Stephen. I suppose so. Kind of obviously we can touch on all the clubs you have worked with, but I suppose this year, Stephen, like, did you enjoy the championship ferocity that it kind of brought?
Yeah, I felt it was for the first time in a good few years, it was a really, really open competition. If you look at the quarter final there, there's probably 6 teams good enough to go on and win it there. With due respect to the 2 others, they're just not as far on in their development as maybe the other 6. And I haven't seen it like that for quite some years. In the last 3 or 4 years, when you look at the quarter final draw, you can nearly pick the eventual 2 finalists, which is very. I don't know if that's a healthy thing. That so soon in a competition that you could pick the 2 finalists and the eventual winner. It's still a lot of football to be played. So yeah, I think it's going to be, and I think for the next couple of years it's going to be very open.
Absolutely. I suppose how much time goes into all this, Stephen? Obviously you did work alongside Jason Riley this year with Cavan Gaels, but I suppose how much kind of preparation time goes into all this kind of S&C work with teams, Stephen?
You're definitely say you're looking at probably 8 to 10 weeks of pre-season, kind of hands-on work with the team, and there'll probably be a little bit of work going on for 4 or 5 weeks prior to that in off-season. So football is 12 months of the year, and the volume goes up and down accordingly. So that's the challenge, I suppose, managing that. You've kind of lost my train of thought. What was your question again?
No, it's that time of night. Don't worry. We all have them. No, I was just asking, how much time goes into all this kind of strength and conditioning work? Because obviously, I was just saying that you're working alongside Jason Riley with Cavan Gaels this year. So I know Jason takes the training, and obviously you'd be looking after the condition of the players.
Yeah, I suppose to answer your question, probably 12 months work goes into it at a minimum. From the minute you accept the job, you're going to work on it, and you're kind of the assumption the players are obviously doing a wee bit prior to that as well, and you just come in and put a bit of structure and direction on that. From there going forward, until such time as in our case that you're knocked out, you're pretty much working every week. Now, there is probably some opportunity to have a few down weeks or complete weeks off altogether. Such is the case with ourselves. We went all the way in the league to a semi-final and a league final, so that obviously closed the window a bit more on us in terms of the time from when the league finished to the beginning of your championship preparation, right through to obviously your championship competitive season. But that would have been something personally I would have pushed for. I like my teams to stay in competitive action in the league for as long as possible, because I think you're getting, obviously if you're getting to a semi-final and a league final, you're getting quality opposition, and you're getting good competitive matches that you otherwise probably wouldn't get it. So if you're not making a semi-final or league final, you're probably going into championship preparation almost straight away. you're playing a few in-house games, you're playing some challenge matches, and I just don't think that they bring the ferocity and the intensity that maybe a league semi-final or a league final bring. And I think going that bit further in the league will stand to you as you prepare for the championship. So even though we have a smaller window of preparation, I think it's better. It's better preparation to stay in the league for as long as possible and go into your league, or sorry, go into your championship preparation with some momentum behind you and some. You learn a lot more about yourself as a team going to a league final and losing, or a semi-final and losing, as opposed to maybe finishing 5th or 6th in the league and kind of not really being able to put your finger on exactly where you're at as a team, and not really knowing what kind of gaps you need to plug in terms of your preparation for your championship. So I was very pleased that we went as far as we did, and we had a bizarre league final that I don't think you'll ever probably see again. And I think it really it got people talking about football around Cavan again. It got people very romantic about it, and it got people out. Got a lot of neutrals out going to games that probably ordinarily wouldn't have went. People were talking about the league final for weeks and weeks leading in the championship, and it got people excited about what the championship was going to bring.
It was good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in a very short space of time, teams that went from being the favourite to the championship went to being outsiders, and teams that went from being outsiders went to being favourites, and there was that kind of ebb and flow the whole way through the championship. And I think that really excites players and management and supporters alike.
Yeah, big time, definitely. Yeah, it turned out to be a great championship overall, and I suppose your work obviously with Casteran, Stephen, I'm intrigued by it because obviously Casteran did win the senior championship in 2018 and 19, and the first time in 2018, and it was just great scenes of jubilation. So I can just imagine what the setup was like that year.
Yeah, obviously we've done 12 months work prior to that as well. And sometimes you forget that because there was so much success in both 18 and 19, and they had been knocking on the door for some time, and it was very much the same management team that was there in 2017. And like that, we fell short, just like the management teams before us in 2007, 16 and 15 as well. So even though we put a lot of work into it, and I'd like to think we brought the level of professionalism up quite somewhat. We didn't do any better on paper than the teams prior, or the management team prior to us. So that was on the surface, if you like. But I felt in that first 12 months that there was something really special happening, and I know that hindsight is 2020, but I felt that the team really, really worked well with the management team throughout 2017, and that there was a lot of unfinished work, and I got the impression that the players were keen to get the management team back in, and that bodes very well, because you're not trying to put something square into a round hole, whatever the saying is. You're not trying to force it, and that can often be the case where, as a coach or a player, you can be quite selfish and you want to stay in something and get it over the line just to prove a point to yourself, maybe. And that shouldn't really be the case. It should really be about the players and about the team and what they stand for, and about the club, which it was evidently in 2018.
Yeah, and I suppose, Stephen, what was it like to be, I suppose, part of that 2018, winning team? Because obviously we've seen the scenes after the Casteran, the tried so many times over the years, and the finally got over the line, and obviously probably down to your hard work and Donald Keoghan's and everyone that was involved that year, Stephen. It was a mighty win for the club.
Yeah, I know we were talking about this off air, but I suppose what really the self-belief really, really grew that year when we won the league final against Cavan Gales at the time, because they were a very, very dominant team and had been going for the best part of 2 years unbeaten. And we hadn't beaten them in the league match. We'd obviously lost the the final in 2017 to them as well. So to win a league final and to beat an opposition of that quality was a huge monkey off the back, and that really spurred the team on to keep going. Now the management team would have played down celebrations for the league, and rightly so, because the Holy Grail at the time for Castlereagh was to finally win a championship. But I just knew at that time that really players' confidence was growing and their self-belief was growing, and it was a great opportunity to capitalise on that. And we did that throughout the league, throughout the championship, and we put some really good performances back to back through that, and eventually we played a final that looked to be getting away from us very much right up until the death. And players they showed the real big players stood up on that day and showed composure, and thankfully got the job done as it was.
Yeah, and I suppose, Stephen, back to back, obviously winning in 2018 and then winning secondly in 2019. I suppose I was talking to Ronan Flanagan there a couple of months ago, and the likes of End as well, to do back to back, and obviously to win it firstly in 2018 was a special feeling, but you probably couldn't believe your luck the second year.
Yeah, that whole momentum of 2018, it really continued on, and I don't mind telling you, I was a wee bit surprised by it, because it was such a relief and such a huge burden for them to finally win a championship, that it would have been very easy for them to, I suppose, to have a bit of a hangover, for the want of a better word. But competition for places was still really high, if you like. There was still there was a huge appetite there to continue winning. I think they really wanted probably to do something maybe in Ulster as well, and they knew that they had to obviously win a championship to do that. So that would have been a huge driving factor. Probably in 18, it was all about winning the county championship, and anything after that would have been a bonus. Even though it would have probably went relatively unsaid within management and the team, I think 2019 very much would have been about making a mark in Ulster, because they had been consistently reaching finals for 5-6 years, and if they were to win one, that wouldn't have really surprised too many people, players, supporters, or management alike. Would have been about maybe doing something in Ulster. So that was probably the carrot that year, I would say, in 2019.
Absolutely, the team was definitely capable. I suppose, obviously, Stephen, like the 3 years you did do with Castlereagh, 2017, 2018, 2019, like, do you feel, obviously, I know obviously it's coaches, there's managements of these teams, but like, do you feel like the wins in 18, 19, and all the hard work and hours and time you put in, like, that was probably like I know obviously you wanted to make a run in Ulster as well, but do you feel like that was like the culmination of all the hard work the team, the management team put in?
Yeah, absolutely. But there's just so much quality there, right from 1 to 15, and from 15 right through to 23, 24, 25. It was a really special time when you had so much quality all together at the one time, to have that much, in every position. Any one of those players could have walked into any club team at that time in the county easily.
Yeah.
I think most people would agree with that.
Yeah.
So it was a unique time in that instance. You could work every bit as hard and harder with a team now, and you wouldn't get that much success, because just the natural talent and the ability isn't there, and you do need that. Like a lot of hard work and preparation, that it'll certainly put you in the mix, but you do need good footballers that are getting good quality coaching, that are really buying into a vision and a style of play that they believe in. And they did, obviously, at the time. So you need all those things to go well, and you can work as hard. And I've worked really hard with other teams, junior and intermediate teams, and players have worked really hard for me, and it's fell flat on its face, because maybe they just fell down a wee bit on their football, and other little bits, of, the technical side of it wasn't just up to scratch, or it's just the development needs to be accelerated a wee bit more on as well. So it's just not enough to say that working hard and having good people in is going to guarantee a success. You need a whole lot of other stuff to go really, really well, as it did for us.
Evidently so, so, Stephen. I suppose, obviously, like when you're kind of watching on the players, and obviously you would have been doing the S&C for the Castlerahan lads in all them years. I suppose how proud does it make you feel, kind of like watching the players go about their business, the conditioning, the work, the time you put into the runs, making them look the way they are, and obviously the physique of all of them. Like, I suppose winning the championships that them years, how proud did it make you feel?
Oh, I was tremendously proud of it. Even in our house here, the kids would have thought that our club and our team would be Castlerahan, because that's all they knew, because they came along at a time when I was kind of knee deep, or shoulder deep, I should say, in Castlerahan, and they would have been going to games and obviously supporting me and cheering me on. Obviously, as they've got older, they realised I was just doing a job, and that Den is their club, But that's just how much I was, and how we as a family were kind of invested in this thing, because you really had to.
It is 3 years, in fairness, yeah.
It is, and everything else, obviously your family and their health and their well-being is a primary thing. But after that, it's very much football, and then everything after that is secondary. And I didn't mind that, and it was great that we won as much as we did within that time. And I'm extremely proud of the players, and I still keep in contact with a lot of them and some of the old management team with that, and we can't help but reflect on it, even though it wasn't terribly long ago. Sometimes it does feel like a long time ago, but it wasn't really, because obviously you had COVID, which is kind of like this period of time that no one can really say when
evaporated.
When it's kind of football.
It's nearly like last year feels like 2020. It was such a weird mindset to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. But sorry, just get back to your original question about being proud. I am extremely proud, and I was really delighted, because it did feel probably there was times maybe in 2017 and early 2018 that maybe the opportunity had passed, because some players were getting a little bit on, and then obviously dealt with the disappointment of losing a few of them, and it would have been understandable maybe that players just didn't have that will and that appetite to really go again. But credit to them, they did. They really stuck in, and that's just what they're like. That's really what they're all about. And I see it there, even there when they won the intermediate. It meant every bit as much to them then, because they would they'd be very proud of being a senior club, and it would have been hugely disappointed to go to intermediate so soon after having that success. And I'm happy for them, and I think it's good for Cavan football that they're back in senior championship as well. I think they'll add an edge of competitiveness too, and I know Brian Donahue is a really, really hard-working manager, and he's very astute, and I think if anyone was going to do it, it was going to be him, and thankfully he has, and I think he'll bring them on quite another bit. It'll be interesting to see where they go from here. I'll be looking on with interest in that one.
It definitely will be, because obviously they weren't expected to go down to intermediate. It's probably a shock to a lot of people, but I suppose obviously with the likes of Cian Mackey and Ronan Flanagan kind of stepping away from the team, obviously 2 big losses, but it's good to see Castlerahan back up to the senior grade, Stephen, make no doubt about it. And I suppose we were kind of talking off air about your Cavan experience, obviously in 2014 and 2015 with the senior team. I suppose that was probably the leap pad to get involved with all the teams you have got involved with, Stephen. I suppose Cavan, it's the creme of the county.
Yeah, and it just really, really came by chance that I got the opportunity to do it, because I was studying part-time for the strength and conditioning qualification, and all the time kind of thinking, where can I get experience at a high level, at a local level as well? How can I get into a high-performance environment that works for me practically, that I can still hold down my day job and still obviously raise a family. And I was only kind of newly married at the time as well, so spinning quite a lot of plates. And Peter Donnelly was just after stepping away from Cavan at the time, and he was gone to Tyrone. And I knew obviously there was going to be a strength and conditioning coach coming in, but he yet to be appointed. So I just called Terry Hyland, and I said, "Look, I'm currently studying. My background is in rugby. I have zero experience in strength and conditioning coach, but I'd love to come in and work alongside the yet to be appointed coach, as it were." And Terry just said, "I don't mind as long as he doesn't mind," kind of thing, you know.
Yeah,
And that was
that's
it.
that's
And
Terry for you. That's Terry for you. Yeah.
yeah, he's so easy going. I kind of had it in my head that I really have to sell this to him, but
Yeah.
he took me at face value, and then they obviously made the appointment of a strength and conditioning coach, and I ran the idea of an intern coming in and working alongside him, and he was happy with that arrangement because it worked for him, because he was able to coach in person with the guys that were living and working in Dublin. So you're talking about a time back in 2014 in a pre-COVID world. There was still a lot of people in Cavan, a lot of players working outside of Cavan, in Dublin and Limerick and places like that. So you kind of had to set up two, if you like, venues, one off-site from Cavan. In this case, it was Dublin. And the STC coach at the time, he worked with the Dublin group, and I got thrown in at the deep end, I suppose, if you like, to work with the Cavan lads. And that was really
Eye opening.
yeah, it was really character building, and it was really
Got a trip to New York out of it too.
yeah, that's right.
Word on the street is word on the street is you knew that was coming up, so that's why you got involved. Now I understand you, Stephen. Now I understand you. The truth always comes out.
Yeah, but the disappointing thing, I missed out on the London trip when we got the backdoor trip. I couldn't go to that because it was my kid's first birthday.
Oh God, okay.
So I had to take a pass on that one.
Okay.
But yeah, even the whole New York experience was absolutely brilliant because
yeah,
we got to see and meet a lot of really, really good people, and then it was obviously a time to get to know players because we were obviously spending a lot of time in a hotel together, and you'd be surprised, even if you work with a team for 12 months or be it 2 seasons, how much little time you actually get to speak to them on a personal level. I actually get to know them beyond the player, because when you see them, it's hands on, and it's work, and you're training, and it's video work, and it's coaching, and it's analysis, and it's just work, and you don't really have that time to say to them, have a personal conversation, and maybe say, how's college going, how's work going, how's things going at your own club and stuff like that. So that was really nice to do that.
Yeah.
And get to know them in New York and stuff like that. And they really, really put me in the shop window as well, because players, when they finished up with Cav and they were seeing how things were done at a county level, and say, look, we could bring this to a club level. And that's ultimately how I got other bits and pieces of work, because these guys seen how I worked, and there wasn't too many coaches, and still isn't too many strength and conditioning coaches around.
That's one of my next questions. Yeah.
So I was really happy that the first person that they would think of when they would see a need for a strength and conditioning coach around their club would be me.
Yeah.
And I would have got lots of calls. I'm very fortunate to get lots of calls down the years. Around this time of the year is when you get a lot of calls from different chairmen or different club representatives.
Any calls tickling your fancy these days? Any coming up?
There's been a few. Yeah, there's been a few. I'd always tell a club that I'm very open to having a conversation.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if they follow that up with a call, how serious they are about it and stuff like that. But when you speak to these different chairmen and or whatever, secretaries or stuff like that, when you're talking to them, you always like to get a feel for kind of the ambition of the club. Are you part of an overall vision for where they want to go, or are they just looking for like a novelty act to come in and say, we got after nailing down a strength and conditioning coach for you?
Yeah.
And then hopefully that sparks a bit of interest from existing and new players. And that's probably a little bit short-sighted. I think you really need to put a really good, strong management team together, and that involves a strength and conditioning coach, and not just a really, really good strength and conditioning coach, if that's the case, and maybe a very average manager.
Yeah.
I would have it the other way around all day. I'd have a really, really good, strong manager, and maybe, I don't want to say an average strength and conditioning coach, but maybe somebody who's just done a year or two of intern as strength and conditioning coach, bring them along, and kind of build it from the top down, if you like, in that scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I suppose obviously your work with Cavan, obviously you really enjoyed your time with Castletown, but the year you did do it, Cavan, as you said, you put yourself in the shop window. It's like anything in life, you need to put yourself in the shop window to get forward in life, I suppose. So you were working with the best in Cavan at that time, Stephen, I suppose. So how impressed were you by all the lads, I suppose, effort to the cause?
Really good. Yeah, at the time in 2014, they were relatively. I want to pick the right word. They were kind of untrained strength conditioning players, if you like.
It was the back of a very good 2013 season. We got to like an All-Ireland quarter, and then maybe some of the players needed to bulk up, I suppose.
Yeah, but they would have been doing well in under 21s prior to that. And they would have been had access purely from football. There wouldn't have been a whole lot of strength conditioning going on in the background there.
Well, Peter Donnelly maybe, but
yeah, he was certainly, and I'm not taking anything away from Peter, but he would have been probably doing that and doing a bit of football, and they probably would have been getting a minimum effective dose, if you like. But as we know now, you need to ramp that up, and I suppose I came at a time when they were starting to do that in Cavan, where they were employing a full-time kind of coach to oversee regular training, regular gym sessions, regular pitch sessions, proper structured training that allowed for recovery and adaptation and stuff like that. So that would have been for a lot of players. Would have been a lot of players in and around the county setup quite some time then that had never done anything like of that training that maybe I was delivering on behalf of the strength conditioning coach at the time. But I knew by them that they were really, really enjoying it, and that they could see the benefits of it, and that they didn't want to revert to going back to possibly the old way it was, where it was maybe an overemphasis on football and not enough on the athletic development, if you like, that they wanted to see a healthy dose of both.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all very interesting. I suppose that we did kind of touch on that a couple of minutes ago. Obviously, with in Cavan, obviously strength and conditioning is becoming such a pivotal part of all club teams really now, and I suppose all county teams definitely have strength and conditioning coaches at this stage, Stephen. So like there is probably not many club teams, maybe senior teams within Cavan. I think obviously Cavan Gales are set this year. No Maguire was in Crusher, but bar that, to my knowledge, there's not many, Stephen. So how important is it going to be in the future?
I would say most senior teams have some level of strength conditioning going on. A lot of clubs would probably have someone that works maybe, I suppose for want of a better word, kind of remotely with the team, that they would send on work for them to do in their own time, be it gym programs, be it
well, I suppose maybe present on match day strength and conditioning, because I suppose you were present on match days, and then maybe Owen was, but maybe there is, as you rightly said, there is strength and conditioning coaches would be further afield for teams.
Yeah, they're probably here but not seen.
Yeah, exactly. Boom. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, and that's probably where it is. I suppose I would be there all the time. That's kind of always the way I've done it. I like being in the mix. That's what you're working towards, and you enjoy being around players and the whole atmosphere and stuff like that. If I wasn't there on game day, it probably wouldn't be detrimental to the performance of the team on the day. But yet, you probably get a bit of FOMO, if you're not there. I like being there, and I think players like me being there as well, because
get you out of the house.
Everybody's on board.
Get you out of the house.
Yeah. It does. It certainly does.
But yes, that's my question. Like, how important do you feel maybe for the future, and maybe the betterment of maybe Cavan football and even clubs across Ireland, Stephen? Like, is it strength and conditioning for clubs, coach for clubs, Stephen? Do you feel?
Oh, I would say it definitely has been necessary to some degree. Every club would need a strength and conditioning coach, and if you don't have one, even if it's in small measures, you're probably in the minority. Even if you're a junior club, even if you're an intermediate club, an underachieving uh, intermediate or underachieving junior, you're definitely working off some sort of a gym program, some sort of a template. I
You
would
have
say,
to. You have to. Yeah.
yeah, I'd say teams are, because if the club isn't providing this, players will seek it out themselves, and they
Mm.
get it in some form or another. They might get it from someone like myself in a one-to-one capacity, or they'll get something quite generic online from an S&C coach either. So everybody's getting a dose of it somewhere. Through their might be collectively through their club, or it might be individually directly from a coach.
Mm.
So yeah, I would say I see it as being important, and um, I see looking on in other teams. Even there, when I go to another club um, for games, I'll always have a wee bit of a snoop around to see what the facilities are like, and
Yeah.
it'll always give me an impression of how the club is being run, and how professional it kind of set up to have. If you walk into a club and have got a well fitted out gym with really good functional equipment and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
it's clean and it's tidy, and maybe there's some programs on the wall, or there's some fitness test results and that, you get a good feel for that. Whereas I think, yeah, this is a better club that's moving forward. You could walk into it equally. You could walk into another club, and there's a very makeshift gym, and there's bits and pieces of equipment, and it's just
Yeah. Thrown around.
maybe Argos equipment that people have donated. And I've got it. And you just think, man, it's just not happening here.
Yeah.
So I'll always do that around other clubs, just to pick up on where they're at, and I think it's fairly accurate too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Presentations, everything is Stephen. I suppose where you applied your trade in the Athlete Performance Institute in 2012, and obviously Santa College as well. So that's how you got your strength and conditioning badges, I suppose, Stephen. So what was the college days like studying for it all?
Oh, it was brilliant because you really got to create a network with people. You're getting to know other coaches. A lot of the lecturers were working within professional environments. We had lecturers at the time. I don't think they're still there. Maybe one or two. We had lecturers at the time that were working with like the Arsenal Force team, working with the Connacht Force team, and they were able to give you a real life experience of an on the ground kind of information about what works, what doesn't work, and that for me I found hugely beneficial, because you could cut out a lot of stuff that didn't work, that you thought might and wasn't really applicable in a practical sense, and then you could really just narrow your focus on the stuff that works and works really well with teams. So it definitely gave me a really, really good understanding of strength and conditioning. It opened my eyes to a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise thought about.
Yeah.
That said, and I would say this to up and coming aspiring coaches, and it was said to me at the time, and I wouldn't say I didn't believe it, but I didn't see the value of it then. Getting out and working with teams at any level or individual and getting experience is the absolute making of you as a
Yeah.
coach. And I think a lot of coaches that are up and coming are very reluctant to do it. And I know from my own experience, I was quite reluctant to do it, because you want to be the finished product for teams, even in your early days, because you don't want to show any vulnerability to the teams, or you don't want to show any gaps in your knowledge and stuff like that. You want to be all things to all people, and you put yourself under huge and tremendous pressure, even in the early days. And it's definitely one thing that I would have done, and I would have, looking back, if I could change things, I would have taken a lot less pressure on myself coming up, because um, you create this impression in your head that players are going to have a really high expectation of you. I don't know where that comes from, but you put a lot of pressure on yourself, and obviously S&C is quite close to me and close to my heart, and I do like to give a good account of myself when I'm talking to players, when I'm coaching them, when I meet them outside of team environments and stuff like that. So you always kind of you always have that professional front on. But I had a really really good quote there some time ago. And I would say this to up and coming coaches now, is like, you don't have to know everything. You just have to know a little bit more than what the players know. And if you can get that across the players on an ongoing basis, you're going to improve them. It's foolproof, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, was this something you always kind of wanted to do, like the strength and condition? Like, is it something that always interested you, like from minute kind of one, Stephen?
Yeah, it did. It was just little things, even growing up and playing rugby and stuff like that. The warm up was always kind of left to me to do. The cool down was always kind of left to me to do, stuff like that. And this was the stuff I was just putting my hand up to do. It was just, I always seemed to get the job to do that. And then playing rugby in Cavan, we wouldn't have had the resources to employ a strength and conditioning coach. They're relatively unheard of anyway when I was playing. I'm going back 15 years ago. But I always done my own pre-season, and looking back at it, there was no real format and structure to it. It was just me out doing training. Sometimes it was full on, and it could have been hill sprints, it could have been laps, it could have been even weight training. I was just going in and lifting barbells, and no real set reps or volume kind of thing. I was doing, to me, it was better than doing nothing. And in the back of my mind, I always kind of thought, right, when I'm finished playing, I want to retire to something. I just don't want to stop playing and do nothing and get away from being around teams and stuff like that. And towards the end of playing with the seniors at the time, which would have been the first team, we had a coach who really put me under pressure to go and do a strength conditioning course at the time. And he really insisted on me doing it. And I wasn't terribly pushed on it because I was still enjoying rugby and I still felt that I'd be playing for another year or two. But I'm really glad that he did, because it gave me exposure to what strength conditioning was. And probably if he hadn't done that, I don't know if I would have. I probably would have maybe got into rugby training probably, and see how that went for a time. But I'm really glad that I did do the S&C at the time. Yeah. And then that really just kind of whetted my appetite. That was a very short course, but it covered a lot and it was quite intense. And if anything, it kind of made me aware of how little I knew about strength and conditioning, and how much I needed to get to know. So that's when I enrolled with Tanta College and done a lot more modules and access to really highly qualified coaches, and obviously got to network with other like-minded people at the same time as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, like, how enjoyable was the course in Satanta, because it's obviously a very well-regarded college in Ireland, and obviously you're a good mate of yours, Jason Riley, got his course, or he got his degree from that as well. So how enjoyable was Satanta for you, Stephen?
Brilliant. It really was, as I said earlier. We had access to really top-class, really world-class coaches, and I remember we had this one particular coach, I don't mind telling his name was Pork Roach, and he was working with the Arsenal Academy at the time. I think he could be working with maybe the under-23s now. He's a Tipperary man, and he was just, the way he coached us, and the way he made it seem so simple, and got his coaching across. I just thought, geez, I want to be like him, I know that sounds like maybe a bit of a bromance.
We all have the heroes, Stephen. We all have the heroes. Don't worry.
it wasn't a man crush, but it was, I just thought if I could get to somewhat to a level that he's on, I'd have really good success with players. Yeah. And I kept in touch with him for some time after when I was in Satanta, and I still see the work he does on various social media platforms, and it's really, really good. And I even when I'm talking to the players now, 10 years on from doing the course, I'd be kind of quoting some of the stuff that he would have said to me at the time, because it's just really, he made such an impression on me at the time,
Yeah.
So yeah, just answer, yes, Santa was top class, and I would still highly recommend it to people. And I do get a lot of players still asking me that would reach out and say, where did you do your course? What's it really like in the strength conditioning? And you got to be honest with them, and there's pros and cons to strength conditioning, and you want to like to give them a clear picture, because Satanta College is a business at the end of the day, and when you speak to them on the phone, and it's not they are a business, and they want to get people in the door. And I wouldn't say to tell people what they want to hear, but there's probably a lot that don't tell you, and why would they, I don't want to seem to be discrediting Satanta at all. If you go in there and you work hard and work with the lectures and stuff like that, you come out with a really good understanding of how to apply good coaching principles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great. And I suppose Owen Guire was involved with the Cavan seniors as well, and he'd done a bit of work with the Longford senior footballers and Crushing Law lads the last couple of years. You know Owen well. He knows his stuff too.
Yeah, Owen would expose me to. He would have worked for Exos at the time, and they're really a high performance worldwide kind of brand, if you like. And I got to see up close and personal kind of how they deliver their kind of coaching, what kind of principles and what their coaching philosophy is. So I got first-hand experience of that. I like that. That kind of whetted my appetite. And I went away sometime after working with Owen. I would have worked. I done an Exos course, and because I worked with Owen firsthand, I was able to kind of bridge the gap between the practical and the theoretical of it as well. And that would have been in and around the time that I was with Casaran. It was a brilliant time to be able to deliver that type of training as well, because it was a great team to be working with. It was quite fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
And I really, really liked the way they done things. So that was really good first-hand experience of working with Owen, and obviously working in a high-performance environment with the Cavan team at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose just overall, Stephen, like how interesting is all strength and conditioning? Like you're obviously recommending people if they've any interest in getting on board with it. But I suppose like how, like as I said earlier on, like when you've seen the fruits of your labour kind of coming through, championship wins, big days in Breffni Park, anywhere you're having yourself, like I suppose how interesting, and I suppose how much do you enjoy it overall?
Yeah, it's a very rewarding career. If you choose to look at the stuff that is of value, if you like. I would say I'd like to think I'm very much a better and more well-rounded coach now than I was even last year or in that time that I was with Casaran. But I was fortunate enough to be at a team when they were going really well and had a lot of really good players. So I suppose if you were to ask me what success looks like now, my answer would be quite different to what it was back then in 2018 and 19. I would have said it looks like winning senior championships, and it looks like winning leagues as well.
Yeah.
So I would tell strength conditioning coaches that perhaps feel they're underperforming or that are up and coming coaches, look at what's going really well for you and have a look at the player's journey from the time that you started working with them till the time where they're at now, or the time you step away from them. And that's a measure of success, to me, I would say. And I think that's something that we need to acknowledge as coaches a lot more often, because it's very easy to let your confidence take a dip and let your self-esteem take a dip when things aren't going well, even though you're really working hard and working with the best intentions and you're serving your players really well. So that's kind of the long answer, if you like. I would say take heart from the things that go unseen, if you like, and the relationships that you build with players. Like, there's nothing like when you step away from the team and a player takes the time just to send you a wee messages to say, really, really, really enjoyed working with you. That they're actually getting past the disappointment losing, and thanks for everything you've done. It's such a lovely token of appreciation. Yeah, it's such a lovely token of appreciation from players. And I would always leave the door open with players and tell them, I might have stepped away from the team. If you need anything from me going forward, do not hesitate to ask. And many have, and I've always obliged them because these are lifelong relationships you're building with players. Even though you might only work with them for 10 months in a year or over the course of 2 years or something like that, you very much you're going to be serving them for a long time, maybe in an informal capacity, And it's nice when they need something that they immediately think of you and reach out to you for something, for help.
Absolutely. Good to make a mark on people, Stephen, as I say. And I suppose, what does the future hold, Stephen? Obviously, we're coming into winter, we're coming into Christmas, the fire's lit, the feet's up. I'm presuming that phone's been rang a few times.
Yeah, this is probably the time of the year, when you start to get busy with a few phone calls and there's a few different offers and stuff like that. I'm, as I said to you, kind of off line, if you like, or off air, that I was really, really enjoying the break and the downtime and kind of resisting the urge to kind of get back into coaching straight away and just allowing yourself the time to decompress and just reflect on maybe the last 12 months and see what worked well and what didn't work well and how you can improve and upskill in this period of downtime. I've no great plans to start working with a team, be it junior, intermediate, or senior at the moment. I really, really like I like the idea of working directly with players on a one-to-one basis because I find the best players to work with are those that are intrinsically motivated and those that are willing to reach out to a coach and spend a bit of time, money, and effort with them to improve their performance, because I can see a lot of myself in those players. And you don't always get that with teams. You work with a team and 50% of the lads could be really, really driven, and you have 50% of the lads that just want to be in and around the club and play a bit of football, and if they happen to play a bit of senior football, well and good, but they really just want to play a bit of reserve and have a bit of crack, and so those guys are important to a club too. But if you've got too many of those and not enough of the leaders and the winners and stuff like that, that's a hard sell for me for a team. I like to know as much as I can about a team and about players before I'll take the time to get involved with them. Now, because even though you might be getting well paid for it, and you like to think that your time and effort going into it is worth your while, that players are going to buy into it and do it, and to come 10, 12 months, if they've had a good year, you feel that you've attributed to that success, because you can, as I said to you earlier, I don't know if it was offline or on the podcast, you can work really, really hard for a team and the end result is zero, and that can be very demoralizing, because you've put the same amount of time and work into that team that you've done with other teams that have had a success, so you feel maybe somewhat shortchanged by the team, or you do have to maybe a long hard look at yourself and about how you done things too. Did you drive in enough? Did you take enough time to reach out to some players that perhaps were struggling with things, encourage them to get on board with things as well. So there's a great saying that a coach that I have a huge interest in, Prep Autonomy, he says, point the thumb before you point the finger, which is kind of saying, have a good long look at yourself before you go point the finger. Because if your credibility is not in check, you don't start calling out players, you just don't, because players won't respect you for it, and you won't get a good response from players for doing it either. If you've been neglecting the team and you haven't been making the effort to get the sessions and to deliver on your training program, players will see that, and quite soon. And even if they're not saying it out loud, they'll be thinking it. Yeah. So if that's the scenario, and you go in and you're going to a changing room and you start bollocking players for not putting enough work in and stuff like that, they're going to turn the tables on you straight away.
Yeah, but it's that generation now, Stephen. Though, like I just feel you can't. It's gonna be with the days. You can bang the tables and whack the doors.
Yeah, you probably have to tread a wee bit more carefully with players.
That's the way it's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I suppose you're different with so many personality types as well. You have to know what works for some players and stuff like that. You can walk, and I've heard of managers going into rooms and saying, this could be mid-season, like saying, you're all just a bunch of fucking bluffers and you're not training. And he's probably going in with I'll go in and I'll say this, and maybe I get a bit of reverse psychology out of it, and I'll come out on Tuesday night and I'll work really, really hard to prove a point against me. Chances are, you might have lost them.
You see, that's it. You have to tread so lightly.
Yeah, I think the approach of maybe managing players individually and finding out kind of what personality type they are, and adjusting your approach to them accordingly is probably a better way to go about doing things.
Yeah,
as you rightly say, in the day and age that we're probably in now.
Yeah, no, it just kind of reminds me. I don't know, the Cavan coach from years ago, Eamon Coleman. He used to get inside players' heads, and he used to be very, very voice his opinions, and probably one of the best coaches Cavan ever had. And he was he definitely got inside lads' head. And I suppose to finish up, Stephen, you've been unbelievable with your time. I suppose there's a young Stephen Ivers around the county, around Ireland, looking to make the breakthrough onto SSE. What advice would you give him?
I just have to commend you. No one's called me young in a long, long time. In fact, I was already having this conversation. I was playing rugby there at the weekend. Was the weekend gone by? No, maybe 2 weekends ago. I was after tackling a fella, and I put in a hit on him, and we were both on the ground. And as I was getting up, he kind of tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, "Good tackle, young fella." And he was easily 10, 15 years younger than me. Like, Jesus, no matter what happens in this game, I'm going to take that.
I don't care. I don't care if we lose. I'll take whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, just alluding back to your question, I suppose I'm going to stay involved in coaching in some capacity because I just can't see a time at the moment where I don't want to be doing it, And I'm actually just working on upskilling on something at the moment. And I know as soon as I kind of get a good handle on that, I'll be keen to roll that out and put it in practice. Because that's why you do it, and that's why you evolve and learn, and that's so that you can get out there and work with players and improve their performance and bring them on athletically as well. So, not giving you a straight answer, but I'll be coaching in some capacity, whether it's online or with teams or with individuals, stuff like that. I haven't really decided, and I haven't put myself under pressure to make that decision yet because I just want to see what really I'm kind of leaning towards. And it's easier to do that when you step back from coaching. When you're in with a team and it's just go, and someone says to you, "What's your plans?" and you're staying on, and we need you to stay on this year.
Yeah,
it's very easy to say without giving it any good long thought as to what you're committing to. Because if you say you can't really go back and say no, because in that moment you're committing to it and there's no going back on it, and you're putting your family's life on hold for possibly the next 10 or 11 months, and you haven't really considered all of the sacrifices that you're making in that actual moment. So I'll just be biding my time. I'd like to think I'd maybe be getting a few phone calls from teams, and maybe I'll make a few as well. See what the appetite is for coaching out there. I'd like something really, really different. Really different from what I've been doing. How
about an under-10s team?
Well, I am doing that obviously with my son's team, and I can tell you that is so hard.
Nightmare.
Yeah, it's harder than any senior or county teams. It really, really is. But yeah, I've been looking at just seeing what's out there. I like the idea of maybe working with a ladies football team or ladies camogie team, and even my wife plays rounders. And I'd like to maybe get a look at that and see if there's anything I can bring to that, and just deconstruct the physical demands of what it is and see what I can do then maybe to bridge the gap between maybe where an athlete is at now and what they need to be at in terms of their sport.
Yeah.
So I'll be coaching, that's for sure. In some capacity, whether it's under 10s rugby or under 10s soccer or Gaelic. I'll not be idle anyway.
Yeah, no doubt you won't be. No doubt you won't be. I suppose last question. Like, I know obviously you were involved with like the Cavan kind of setup, but would a county, if ever a county came knocking, would you be ever interested? A county setup?
Probably not, John. I don't mind telling you that because I know now my niche is working with club teams. You know, I really love that environment. And that works for me. The county setup
more interpersonal to the club, I suppose. Yeah.
It probably is, that too, and that's a big thing for me. But the county thing is so demanding now. Like there's nobody doing county jobs
7 days a week.
And if they are, they're working every hour outside of their job, and that just wouldn't be for me. I done a bit of that when I worked with Cavan Miners a few years ago. I was trying to balance a club team and a minor team, and I just got burnt out. And I stepped away from coaching for some time, and kind of COVID allowed for it as well. So I know what my limitations are to answer your question. So working with a club, I kind of know,
what you're signing up for.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think clubs know what they're getting from me as well to that degree, and we have a good understanding. I just love the whole club environment. These players are generally closer. There's nothing. I'm not saying I'm taking anything away from players have played with each other from underage. They've probably gone to the same school. They probably socialised together. They outside of football and stuff like that, and they just have that camaraderie that you just can't manufacture within a county setup. So I love that, and I think that's really important. And if you've got that within a team, you got a lot of trust and you got a lot of a lot of mutual respect going on within players. So all you have to concentrate on doing when you come in is moving things forward athletically and football wise. So your role is very much black and white, if you like.
Black and white. Yeah, it makes absolute sense because the county setup for any man involved these days seems absolutely bananas. One last question to come into my head, and you might not have a few friends after this. The top 3 athletes you've worked with in the club scene the last few years. Top 5, as many as you want.
God, I could easily give you 20, 30. I think probably Rushing Kieran is definitely one.
Yeah, he's brilliant, yeah.
That said, now he came to me in very, very good physical shape, and I probably only added about 5, 6, 7%.
He'd be supreme, yeah.
He would. I can't take too much credit. Well, that's not the question you're asking me, but probably then Ronan Flanagan was really, really good as well. And he really, really invented himself. When I started working with Ronan, he was 31, 32, and he'd been in county setups for about 10 years. But that's
Cavan team for 10 years, yeah.
Yeah. Then working with Cavan Gale, sorry. Robert, I always get his name.
Robert Maloney Derham.
Yeah, I always say Robert Derham Maloney. He's just a genetic kind of freak,
He's sick,
someone like him, I don't really have to. I can just let him look after himself and give him work to do. You don't really bring him up. That's 3. Who else then? I suppose. Those guys are brilliant, but I would lean maybe towards kind of guys that are really open to learning and opening to different types of training and keeping an open mind about how to do things, that they're not pigeonholing themselves into a certain way of training. But certainly those 3 were really, really outstanding. There's another guy there, and I can't put my finger on it, what made him what he was, but we had a guy, Pork Lukey at the time with Casa Ram.
Oh, Paul Lukey.
No, not Paul. No, Pork would be a cousin.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Relatively unknown because he was away for a number of years and he came back, and he hadn't been playing football while he was away and that, but he just came in at a really, really good level, and he was always the high scorer and 1Ks and stuff like that. And I didn't get too much coaching into him, and he was really, really a high achiever in terms of physical kind of things. And now, over the course of 2 years, he was there in 18 and 19. He did come on considerably, but I never seen a player with so little training background to be of such good physical kind of capacity, if you like.
Yeah.
Who else then? Niall Murray is really good and still is really good with Cavan Gales.
He finished up at the county, I think, Niall, didn't he? He's finished with Cavan.
Yeah, I think Niall. Yeah, I think Niall has been a really smart move in terms of that, and kind of putting all his eggs in one basket. I think he'd get a bit more longevity out of his football.
He will. It's good, yeah.
Going to a club team. I really like speed to train, as you probably know, and I really like players that have got physical good capacity that can cover short distance and really short and long distance in short times. If you like really fast players, and Emmanuel, I always call him Emmanuel Adebayor. Emmanuel Sheehu is really, really quick.
Emmanuel Sheehu,
yeah. He's a really, really fast player.
Oh God, he is. Yeah.
Keenan Dunham's another really, really fast player as well, and
big. I think you'd be a bit. I think the whole county, probably nearly Ireland at this stage, Stephen. Big Roe McKernan, I think he's Colossus.
In terms of speed.
Well, just I suppose power and strength, would that be down your street?
Yeah, he would. Yeah. But again, he's been around the county setup for 10 plus years, and then he's really, really particular with his training, and he's really to the letter of doing things, you know.
Okay.
And he's one of those players that never questions.
I think we might have lost Stephen there, have we? Yeah, maybe Stephen's line is gone, guys. Yeah, I think we've lost him there. But that was Stephen Ivers, of course, a well-regarded strength and conditioning coach. And no doubt we will see him back involved with some club team, maybe across Ireland or in Cavan once again. But I'd like to thank Stephen for joining me this week. And of course, this podcast is brought to you by orgarich.com. Use the code JMac podcast to get 15% off on their website. It's a brilliant website, guys, so get on it. Thanks, Stephen, for joining me this week, and stay tuned for more podcasts.